Welcome to the Women's Wednesday Entrepreneur Series. I'm Brandy Stitt, the Program Director for the Women's Business Center in Kansas City. Thank you all for joining us today. Today we're going to focus on LinkedIn 201 for Business. This is the third of our four-part series on social media. We are recording these sessions and posting them on our YouTube channel. So if you've missed the first two sessions on Social Media 101 and Facebook 201, please feel free to visit our YouTube channel for those recordings. And I will let you know when we have this recording available as well on our YouTube channel. It usually takes us a couple days to get those edited and posted. So this afternoon, we, as I mentioned, are going to focus on LinkedIn 201. Our presenters for today are Christina Hager with Ovations Digital and Aviva Ajmera with Solve KC. And I am going to hand it over to Christina.
Thank you, Brandy, and thank you so much to the Women's Business Center for having Aviva and I here with you today. We're really excited to talk about LinkedIn. And as Brandy said, I'm Christina Hager. I am the president and founder of Ovations Digital, and I am a social media strategist. So what I do is help individuals, brands, and businesses learn how to use social media strategically to reach your business goals. And I work with customers on the B2B and the B2C side, a lot of e-commerce, brick and mortar stores, restaurants, health, fitness, beauty, wellness, and then a lot on the B2B side, change management, consultants, construction, apps, and technology, and then individual thought leaders, a lot of C-suite individuals, attorneys, physicians, people who really want to be known as the leaders in their fields. I am a small business owner and also happy Women-Owned Small Business Month to all of us. That is what we celebrate in October. And as such, I'm always happy, as is Aviva, to really help business owners use social media strategically and to help them see growth and a good return on their investment.
Thanks, Christina. Hi, everyone. I'm Aviva Ajmera, CEO and co-founder of Solve KC. I've been giving a version of this class for over 4 years to entrepreneurs and small to medium-sized businesses all over Kansas City. And I am always thrilled when I can share this class with Christina. She is my personal social media guru, so you are in for a real treat. I also wanted to thank the Women's Business Center, who has been phenomenal at sponsoring our entire social media series. And for all of you who've also been following us along the way when we gave this class a couple months ago, but also through our current series, thank you for joining us and being a part of our followership. Like Christina, our firm has B2B and B2C clients across many industries. And we also have a lot of nonprofit organizations. We do a lot of strategic planning and implementation work for our clients, as well as work with a lot of their board of directors to help them become high performing. And common to all of this work is marketing and social media. Personally, I have been a part of a large international consumer packaged goods company, 2 international B2B consulting firms, and now I own my own B2B consulting firm here in Kansas City. And I can say each of these companies uses social media differently. So our hope for you today and throughout all of our classes is that you will figure out what works best for you. We will teach you tips and tricks and share some real business examples along the way. We've got one more class next week. It's in this series. It will focus on Instagram and Twitter, like Brandy shared. And all of our classes will be posted on the Women's Business Center site with a link to the recorded classes on their YouTube channel. So as a way to get started, Christina and I would love to know if you are a B2B business, a B2C business, or a nonprofit business. And please go ahead and put the name of your organization into the chat. It will give us an opportunity to kind of cater our comments as we go throughout the presentation today. So what are we going to talk about today? We've got some fun stuff. We're going to start with some general information, some statistics, and some proof points on why social media is important for your business. We'll also make it really relevant and talk about how social media has been impacted with COVID-19. And then Christina's going to share with you some speaking socials specific to LinkedIn, because we know sometimes that vernacular can get a little bit confusing. Then we're going to spend most of our time today doing a deep dive into LinkedIn. We're going to start with your personal profile because it's really the foundation of everything. We'll teach you how to get connections. We'll teach you the importance of thought leadership. And then we're also going to share with you how you get more connections and more followership by being a part of groups. And we'll talk about business pages. We'll ask you to figure out, is a business page right for your business? And if so, we'll share with you how to build it and the ways to get followership. We'll also talk about content distribution and hashtags, one of my favorite topics. And then we're going to make sure that you don't feel overwhelmed by everything that we're sharing with you. And Christina's going to share with you some of the most well-known and really the best tools that are out there for content creation and curation to make it a little bit more manageable for you. We will have Q&A throughout our entire presentation, but we also want you to know, as you have questions, please feel free to put them either into the chat or into the Q&A. I will be monitoring those throughout our entire session. And then we're going to wrap up because we want to make sure that you have some takeaways from our class today with how you're going to start your own LinkedIn plan. So we'll recap some do's and don'ts for you, and we'll have some tips for building your plan. And I did want to mention, Brandy distributed some of our slides in handouts that she sent earlier today. I think we've got about 11 or 14 in there. It's not the entire deck, but they're the perfect pages for you to have as takeaways and for you to make notes on as we go through our session today. Okay, so I always like starting with what comes to mind when you think social media. And the main reason I do this is because I know for a lot of us, it's a little bit of a mystery, or maybe you don't have the best word association when it comes to social media. So it could be for you, social media is, you know what, it's what the younger generation does. They've kind of lost the art of having a conversation. All they do, even if they're standing right next to each other, is communicate through their devices. Or it could be, you know, it's a little scary. It kind of reminds me of high school chemistry class. You're not sure if you start getting into it and mixing things, if you're going to have an explosion on your hands. We promise you, you won't have an explosion on your hands. Or for those of us that are old enough to remember when the Rubik's Cube came out, it could be a little bit about the Rubik's Cube. You know, there's a solution, but you know, it's going to take a little bit of work and a little bit of practice to figure out just how to get everything working perfectly. Where our goal for you today is to make sure that you feel really confident when you come out of our class.
So you probably, if you're a business owner, definitely if you're a marketer, or if you're a board member or an executive, you've heard you need to be on social media, but you may not have a firm understanding of why social media is really critical for your business. And in each of our sessions, we've been talking a little bit about why social media is so critical for our business. So let's take a look at this stat. 74% of consumers rely on social media to make decisions. And we are seeing these trends, not just in the B2C space about what sneakers you might want to buy, but in the B2B space as well. We're seeing consumers being influenced by social media when they decide what events to attend, what organizations to give their money to, what nonprofits they should support. And consumer behavior has really changed. That's a whole separate class. Aviva teaches a great consumer marketing class that you can catch next go around. But consumer behavior has changed, and now we have a whole generation that they don't buy from catalogs. They don't understand that kind of selling. They care about experiences. And whether you're a B2C or a B2B or even a nonprofit, they care just as much about how you as a brand and an organization make them feel as to really what your end product is that you're selling or sharing with them. And this is critical because we also have the millennial generation, right? And millennials currently have $200 billion in spending power. And over their lifetime, they're going to have $10 trillion. So to ignore them in your marketing plans is a huge mistake. And social media has become a big part of the decision-making process for millennials. Now, let's say you're on the B2B side, or you're wondering how that works for you in the workplace, or you're a business leader. Consider this. For the first time this year, millennials have overtaken Generation X as the most populous generation in the workplace. By the end of this year, there'll be about 50% of the workforce in the United States will be made of millennials. And so it turns out that the person who has the ears of the stakeholder, or the person who is the decision maker for your B2B service, or the person who's the entry point for you, may very well be a millennial, or someone who is used to this kind of social proof in the relationships that they develop with people, companies, and organizations across social media. So as we consider LinkedIn specifically, and we're really excited to talk LinkedIn because we both love it. We both use it a lot personally and professionally. It is an amazing tool for your business. It's the #1 social platform for B2B marketers. We see 95% of B2B marketers using LinkedIn for organic content marketing. That means non-paid marketing. Traffic from LinkedIn, it generated the highest visitor to lead conversion, 3 times higher than Twitter or Facebook. And 80% of all social media B2B leads are coming from LinkedIn. It's a successful way to build up your reputation, your brand awareness, and to turn people into leads for your business. And members are 50% more likely to actually purchase from a company that they've interacted with on LinkedIn. And we see that half of the social traffic to these big corporate websites is coming from LinkedIn. So obviously super critical that if your business, or you as a business leader, if you're not active on LinkedIn, we're happy you're here today because we want to change that for you. And we want to give you the best tools that you can optimize your experience and your time on LinkedIn. As part of any business right now, we need to talk about COVID a little bit and talk about how that has affected or impacted social media, and especially LinkedIn. So when we started this year, from last year to this year, we had an increase in people using the internet and social media of about 8%, whereas the population just increased by 1%. So we're really seeing a lot more people using social media. And then in March, we see what this table tells us: increased social media use across all age groups. People were really going to social media to connect, to learn information, to see what's going on. In fact, 62% of Americans use social media to get their news. And if you're on any social media, especially with the election coming up, you've definitely seen that that's true. Now, what about organizations or brands or businesses during COVID? Do people really want to hear from you? And resoundingly, yes. 43% of consumers find it reassuring. They want to know. And in fact, something like 34% of Americans say that if they don't hear from a business or an organization across social media, they believe it is because that business is no longer financially solvent because of COVID, and they will not spend their time or money or effort with that organization. So this is not the time to hush up. This is the time to share what's going on with your organization. And LinkedIn, since COVID, has really recorded a record number of activities, engagements, connections, a 26% raise in sessions of people on LinkedIn in that first quarter when COVID first kind of hit the scene. 1 in 4 company posts in March and April mentioned COVID. And LinkedIn Learning, which is just different resources you can use, they saw an increase in about 50%. So even on LinkedIn, which is definitely the most business of all the platforms, it saw an increase in use because of COVID. So like I said, it's important to know how to use LinkedIn successfully. So I always love to tell a story of LinkedIn success. You can look right now at Coca-Cola or Patagonia's LinkedIn. They always have amazing LinkedIn posts. But I wanted to tell about a lesser known company, Draw Robotics. They're out of New York. It's a graphic design firm. And what they do is they specialize in 3D renderings of floor plans. So about as B2B as they come. And what they decided after, on a Sunday afternoon, after some of them had had some TV binge-worthy sessions over the weekend is, wouldn't it be fun if just for fun, they did some 3D renderings of some of their favorite shows? And so they did one of The Office. You can see here, Mad Men, Suits, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec. And so they did all these little fun renderings, and also they did what we call little Easter eggs inside of them. So if you look really closely on all of them and you're a fan of the show, you'll see little inside jokes, like for The Office, when Jim puts Dwight's stapler in Jell-O. Those are all in. So really, really fun ways to keep people looking. And they posted these on LinkedIn with the desire to increase their brand awareness, have a little fun, right? That people would really like these, and also encourage some traffic to their website. And man, was that successful for them. This was picked up by Business Insider. People loved it. Their LinkedIn campaign was viewed tens of millions of times. They actually won LinkedIn's most innovative small business award. But the business proof, they increased their signups and their sales across 40 different markets. So they took what was just really a fun idea and they turned it into a super successful strategy. And so our goal here today is that we can help you optimize your profile, optimize your business page, and lay the foundation. So as you have these ideas, you're set up for success to make them as amazing as they can be. Oh, Aviva, you're on mute, I think.
Sorry about that. I was just saying, thanks, Christina. I always love when you share that story because I think it really brings to life how if you've got a plan and you're organized about your execution, you can really achieve some stellar results. This next slide that I'm going to walk through is in your handouts. It's what I call the money slide. Those of you who've heard me talk about this slide before, I pulled this together from probably 16 to 20 different sources. And we like starting off our different social media classes with it because we think it gives you all a really good snapshot to understand if you're just delving into social media for the first time for your business, which are the one or two platforms that you want to start with, or if you're already on one or two and you feel really confident, yay. But if you want to figure out what the next one is, this is a great way to try to help you sort through that. So the 4 platforms that we're talking about and across our series are Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. I think everybody knows Facebook. I just created a new platform, Christina, Facegram. Facebook is by far the #1 most popular social media platform. LinkedIn is really professional. It's the world's largest professional network. Instagram is the 2nd most popular social platform, and Twitter is actually the 2nd most recognized social platform. So when it comes to Facebook, there's no question it's the #1 site to influence purchase. 70% of US adults and 65% of those under 35 are on Facebook. There are over 90 million Facebook business pages, and stories has become super, super popular in the last few years with at least 300 million active users. The average amount of time people spend on Facebook has actually gone up. It used to be about an hour every day. Now it's about 75 minutes daily, and they do it up to 8 times a day. So it's not all in one sitting, but again, good for you to know. And it is best for photos, videos, links, and events. So let's talk about LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is definitely the business-oriented social networking platform of the 4 of them. It is where people share news and articles and also have great conversation amongst their peers. It's the platform where you have the opportunity to connect with top industry influencers. There are over 40 million business pages on LinkedIn. 79% of users are over 35, with 44% with an income of over $75,000 a year. And also important for you to know, depending on the type of business that you have, LinkedIn has 90 million senior level influencers and 64 million decision makers. And that one statistic will come to life a little bit more as we walk our way through the presentation. The cool new fun factor in LinkedIn is they just added stories. And we're going to talk about LinkedIn stories a little bit later today. It is by far best for networking. It's best for building professional credibility. And it is best for business development and B2B businesses, which I saw through the chat. We've got quite a few on with us today. So let's talk about Instagram. We are going to talk about Instagram next week. Instagram limits your posts. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Instagram is the social sharing site around pictures and videos. We've got now about 1 billion users, and 90% of users are under the age of 35. So very much of a flip from who is on LinkedIn. However, the age group of 55 plus is actually experiencing the greatest growth, and 75% of US businesses use Instagram. People on average spend about 53 minutes a day. It is ideal for mobile devices, for photos, videos, stories, and any business that's image friendly. Okay, Twitter. So Twitter got popular, really. Its signature handful of traits were around the fact that it limited posts to 280 characters. It is the purpose of conversation, customer questions, and news real time. Twitter now has over 600 million users. It is where hashtags were created, and about 67% of businesses are on Twitter. So it's best for PR and news. Those of us that are on Twitter for personal reasons know if you're wondering what's going on, it's where you're going to get the immediate, fastest update. It's also phenomenal from a business standpoint for real-time customer engagement. And it is also best for photos, videos, and links. So as you think about how to prioritize, we're hoping that this chart will help you out a little bit.
So just like if you're going to any country, you need to learn to speak a little bit of the language. If you're going to Italy, buongiorno, come stai? We have to speak social, right? And so one of the neat things about this class today is that we have people assembled from all over the United States and all over the world here in our class. I think like 6 or 7 different countries are represented in today's webinar, but we can all speak the language of speaking social after this slide. So when it comes to LinkedIn, users just refers to the people who are using LinkedIn. Likes are the people that hit that like button. But now LinkedIn in the last year and a half, I believe, gives you a lot of different options. You can like it, you can hit a little applause, a heart. They give you some different options, but those are all great for engagement. Feed refers to if you open LinkedIn on your desktop or on your phone, that rolling list of content that you see. And a lot of us do what I call the scroll, which is just scrolling through that content. And a connection refers to any person that you've added to your LinkedIn network. You are now connected. Whereas on Twitter or another channel like that, connections can just be one way. That's not the case for LinkedIn. You have to ask to be connected to someone and they have to accept it. It is like a dance. Both partners have to agree, which is great in a professional relationship. Now, when we talk about engagement, a lot of people throw around that term. We want to see great engagement. It really refers to the metric of people who share, like, or comment on your post. They are engaging with it in some ways. And why that metric is important is it shows that people are not only seeing your post, but they're finding it important or interesting enough to interact with it. Shares are people who share your content onto their page, onto their profile. They can choose to make an additional comment or not. And then click-throughs are people who click through to your website, or perhaps you posted an article and they're clicking through onto that. And why all of these in general are important to know is anytime you're on any social media channel, there are metrics that can be identified and measured, so you can really understand if your efforts and what you're doing is really rewarding you and if they're giving you the ROI that you need. And of course, Our good old friend hashtags. A hashtag is used to collect content over a particular social media channel by literally using the pound sign followed by a group of words, no spaces, no punctuation. And it can be a hashtag used in fun. I always mention hashtag Wine Wednesday, which is today. Hashtag feel so free, hashtag throwback Thursday, or it could be a serious hashtag, hashtag thought leadership, hashtag B2B, or it might be a branded hashtag, hashtag just do it, hashtag vote. And it includes themes, events, days. And if your organization does not have a branded hashtag, think about what that might be for your business or organization. It's a great way that it almost bookmarks content for you across all of the digital space so that when you search or someone else searches for that information, all of those hashtags published with any certain post by anyone will come up. So it's a great way to curate content and to see also who's in the space talking about what particular subject.
Okay, so now that you're a little more familiar with the vernacular, let's talk about building your personal profile. So with some fast facts, we mentioned up front that 92% of B2B marketers use LinkedIn. I included this chart on the right-hand side just so you could get a sense what B2B marketers say is the most common channel that they use for marketing. And you can see LinkedIn is ahead of Twitter and Facebook. So as we think about what are the best ways to get engagement, there are a handful of musts that we want to leave you with. The first one is you must have a professional photo in your profile. I'm going to share some funny examples with you as we go through our session today. They're not the good examples. A good example is something like Christina, what she's got on her LinkedIn. When you have a professional photo, it makes you 21 times more likely for your profile to get viewed, and it makes you 36 more times likely to receive a message. So I'll give you an example. Christina and I tried to connect with everyone that signed up with for this class on LinkedIn. If you weren't already in our network, we couldn't find some of you. And part of the reason was there might be other people with your name and you didn't have a picture. Not that we know what you look like, but if you don't have a picture, that's not going to help us. But also you don't have other information in your profile filled out that could help us figure out if it was you or not. So if you didn't get an invitation from me or Christina, we're inviting you to send us an invitation. And we'll talk a little bit later about why that will actually help you build the number of connections that you have. The other few things that are really important to include in your profile is detailing your education and experience. Part of that is also including community service and volunteer work. When you list your current position, you will have 5 times more connections. Now, I know most of us, let's take our resume as an example. It's probably not very current because you usually only make it current when you need to find a new job. Some of you that are on with us today might be in that situation, but for others, know that having the most current position is what's going to be most relevant. So if you haven't updated your profile, just take a couple minutes and get it updated. You'll also get 12 times more profile views than if you don't have any of that information. Skills, it's something that's in the template. Skills will get your profile 14 times more views. And the reason is people search on skills. So if the key skills that you have or the skills that you're wanting to communicate for what you're doing right now in your business or your career are not listed in your profile, people aren't going to be able to find you. There's a magic number to skills, and that magic number is 5. So if you have 5 or more skills, you will get 31 times more views. That's insane. And just to make it a little bit easier for you, do know that LinkedIn will prompt you so that you've got some examples to choose from. You don't have to make them up out of your own head. Okay, let's talk connections. Your goal that we're going to give you today is to at least get to 500 or more connections. Now, if you're not there yet, I know it can sound a little bit overwhelming, but we're going to help you. We're going to teach you how to do that. Now, if you are the CEO at your company or you're in C-suite leadership level position, your goal's a little bit higher. We want you to have 1,000 plus connections. And the main reason is your thought leadership element to your profile and the ability to reach more and more people. And again, I know that number sounds really, really huge. I'll give you a quick little story. I started helping an executive. It was maybe like a year or two away from retirement. He'd basically been in the same company for over 30 years. I think he had 38 connections. And the reason is he didn't think he needed any more, because way back when, in 2002, when LinkedIn started, you only ever had a LinkedIn profile if you were looking for a job. That's just not the case anymore. LinkedIn has evolved so much, and it's so much more sophisticated than just a place to have your digital resume. So this particular person is now at almost 4,000 connections, and it took him some time. I mean, I would say it's been at least 4 years, but he worked at it very deliberately and diligently, and it's made a huge difference. So again, your goal, at least 500, maybe 1,000, depending upon where you are in your organization.
So don't forget, connect with Aviva and I will help get you to that 500.
We will.
Now, when we talk about our personal profile.
Right. So if you're on this class today, whether you have a B2B or B2C, or you're in a nonprofit organization, even if you're still trying to figure out if LinkedIn is right for your business, you've got to first start with a personal profile. Okay. And I'm going to share 7 key steps. This slide is also in your handouts. So we already mentioned the professional photo. We're also going to tell you, add a background. It's such a phenomenal place to add a little bit more personality, either to who you are professionally, or in my case, I've got my company logo in the background. If you don't have a background, here's what it's going to look like. It's going to be that blue kind of astrological looking background that lots and lots of people have. And guess what? People are going to know that you didn't take advantage of using that space and you've just got the default background. We don't want you to have the default background. We want you to have a personalized background. So go in and personalize your background. The next most important thing is to have a descriptive headline. So there was a time when people thought it was really catchy to kind of have really cool names like Sherpa or whatever it might be, Dream Maker, as a part of their keywords. We don't recommend you do that. We recommend that you have keywords that matter, keywords that are relevant to who you are. So as an example, I have that I'm the CEO of my company. I have that I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also on several boards. So I've got board director, and I'm also an angel investor. So I have angel investor. Christina's got a whole separate set of words that personify who she is. So think about what the best words are for you and put those into your descriptive headline. The third step is to tell your story in a summary. The best way to figure out what to include, I'll be really honest with you, just search around and look at some other personal profiles, see what you like. Sometimes people make them way too long. It's not a story. It should be a paragraph. And I know sometimes it's really tough to kind of cull it down to keywords, but just work on it. It's just a one-shot glance of someone to have just a summary of who you are professionally. The next step is to showcase your expertise. And we talked about that a little bit in the previous slide. And then your education. So a lot of times people ask, how far back should I go in education? Unless you're a college student or someone who has just graduated college, do not include high school. The other rule of thumb is you don't need to put years by your education. If you are more than 10 years out from whatever the most recent degree or certification is that you've noted. Key things are the university, your major, and if there are any standout distinguishing elements, there's room in the profile template for you to add those as well. The sixth item is volunteer experience and causes. Now, I know a lot of us here in Kansas City are on a lot of nonprofit boards or desire to be on a nonprofit board. This is a great place for you to showcase the causes that are important to you. Either things that you've done from a volunteer standpoint, even if you've been on committees, but not actually on the board of directors, you can include all of that information in your volunteer experience. And I'll teach you a little trick. There's an icon, an image that if you're connecting with an organization, make sure you're calling it the way they refer to themselves on LinkedIn. And that way you'll get a really nice logo image of the organization versus it being kind of just a blank generic icon. So the best way to do that is just go into LinkedIn and type in the name of the organization that you want to mention and see how they call themselves and then refer to it exactly like that. And then the final step of the 7 key steps is recommendations. So here's the rule of thumb on recommendations. You don't need 50 recommendations. Honestly, I would say 4 to 6 of your most relevant experiences is plenty. And make it easy for the person who you're asking to write a recommendation. Maybe you contact them by email or depending on your relationship, text message or phone call, ask them if they'd be willing to write a recommendation for you. You can even recommend to them the key things you're wanting them to mention, because ideally all of your recommendations would talk about different aspects or some overlap, but not identical, because people will read those to get a sense of who you are professionally and what are the different things that you do that are outstanding. So you don't want all the recommendations to read exactly the same. And I'll tell you from my point of view, when people ask me for a recommendation, I always say yes. And I said, why don't you write up a few sentences of what you would like for me to say? And then I turn it into my own words, but I want it to be helpful for them. And they've asked me for a very particular reason. So I want to make sure that's included in any recommendation that I write for them.
That's excellent. And so that is the basic, your foundation for how you want to really optimize your profile. But we want to give you also a few extra tips. Don't forget to use your past experience and lead with results and data. And what we mean by this is, as if during your current role or your last role, you increased sales by 25% or helped the company grow its profit share by 12% or had a quarter by quarter lead, whatever those data points are, share those in your summary and in your job description. Make sure those are everywhere. Recruiters and people who are looking to hire you, or people that are looking at your experience, let's say if you want to be a board of directors, are really interested in those data points. And then think rich media. LinkedIn gives you an opportunity to put what they call rich media, which are videos, links to your website, PDFs, blogs. Take advantage of that. Have at least 3 pieces. And if you want examples, you can go to my LinkedIn. I have an article I'm quoted in ink. I think I have a link to my website and then a link to my article and maybe a video there. So those are the things you should be putting. They're little snapshots of sort of what you have to offer that people don't need to go and dig for in your post. They're right there below your summary, education, things like that. Also, publish at least one LinkedIn article. LinkedIn actually is its own publishing platform. We'll talk about this in a later slide, the details, but publish at least one LinkedIn article. But I would say try to make it to 3 articles for a fully fleshed out profile. Sounds silly. You must post. You must put up posts on LinkedIn. Someone came to me pretty recently actually and said, I want to increase some engagement on LinkedIn and I'm not really getting a lot more connections and I might have a role change. I might be joining a board. And I said, well, let's look at what you've posted. And the answer was nothing. How on earth are you supposed to engage with anyone if you haven't shared anything? And so you must post and you must also engage with other people's posts. This does not mean you need to live in LinkedIn and be in there all day, every day. but you must check LinkedIn and you must engage in the platforms to see the best experience for yourself. Now, if you list industry information, that leads up to 9 times more profile views. So if you can be specific in your industry, if you can fill your summary with both a concise idea of what you offer as well as keywords that people might be searching for, that's just going to help beef up your profile and give it the chance to be seen by more people and have more eyes on it, which is ultimately the goal.
Thanks, Christina. That last slide is also in your handouts for reference if you want it for later. So we're going to pause here for a minute and take a few questions. I have answered a few of them through the chat that were very specific to people's specific needs. A question that we get asked a lot is, should you accept everyone who sends you a connection request? I'm going to let Christina start the answer, and I'll add a little bit to it. And if you have any questions regarding this question, feel free to throw them into chat or Q&A, and we'll try to get it incorporated into the answer.
This is really a personal preference, but our advice and recommendation has changed a little bit. Really, we used to say, just connect with people who you know in real life. Now I would say it really depends. It depends on your objective and what you're looking to do in your business, how many people you have in common and what value you'll get from having that connection. Did they send you a note? Did they give you context as to why that you want to connect? And in the age of COVID, I will say we are now replacing in-person networking events, those brown bag lunches, those great in-person events with things like this, webinars. And so it is highly more likely that you're networking with people virtually. So because of that, maybe you want to open up and connect with people that maybe you don't know, but that you have something in common with, you have people in common with, and that might really help you make those decisions. And I'll let Aviva, because she has a different perspective, but I will say the industry you work in, I'm working in social media, which touches so many different industries. I will be more likely to accept different inquiries and connections because of what I do and because I am so public facing.
Right. And again, we want you to figure out what's right for you. So we're just giving you different points of view. I will acknowledge that my point of view on this has definitely changed. So the rule used to be in LinkedIn, if you don't know them, don't accept a request. But the reality is, if you're trying to network and grow your network, then that's going to really severely limit you. My point of view on it has changed as I became an entrepreneur. So when I worked in corporate, international multi-billion-dollar company, and I was mostly focused on just that company, I really didn't need to have a huge LinkedIn network, but that was also a long time ago. That was 12 years ago. So since I became an entrepreneur, and I'm based in Kansas City now, and I'm an angel investor, and I'm on several boards, my desire to broaden my network across the country and internationally in those relevant areas has increased. And so based on that, I use all of the criteria that Christina shared with you, especially how many connections we have in common. Because if we have people that I know well and I trust, and I know they're quality people, and I've got a lot of those people in common, even if that person is a third-degree connection, I will most likely accept it. I will go and check their profile first to make sure that I'm okay with it. Another tip that Christina and I are going to tell you is, if you're reaching out to somebody that is maybe a friend of a friend, or someone that you know distantly, you might know them, you're not sure if they know your name or not, send a personal note. I never accept an invitation from someone that I don't know at all that doesn't have a personal note. Now, so for those of you, anybody who perhaps has sent Christina and I an invitation before you knew the importance of a personal note, we'll still accept your invitation because we knew you were on our class with us today. But outside of that, I just really don't, because what happens is, as an angel investor, I literally get people from all over the world that want to connect with me. Because I'm an entrepreneur, every professional service you can imagine is reaching out to me, whether it's financial or insurance or lead generation. I've already got all my people in those areas. I don't need new people. Now, if they're in that area and I don't know them, but we have a lot of people in common, what I usually do is say, I'm happy to connect with you, but I'm not in need of your services right now. Thank you. So it's still a polite exchange. I'm happy to let them into my network, but I don't want them selling me anything. Okay, do we have any other questions on this topic? We usually have so many. Otherwise, we'll move ahead. We've got a lot of other great content. And just know you can keep posting your questions. I am monitoring them throughout, so we can always circle back to this topic. All right, so how do we get connections? Because again, remember, we've given you the goal of either 500 or 1,000 plus. Our goal is to get you to this all-star standing. And the way that you do that is the 500 plus. So here's how you build your network. Think about who you're connected with on your other social media platforms. It could be Facebook, it could be Instagram, it could be Twitter. Look for those companies or those people first. Then think about just who do you know? Who do you know in your neighborhood? Maybe some extracurriculars that you're involved in or hobbies. It could be service providers. It could be alumni of your undergraduate or graduate programs or even high school. If you've worked at a bunch of different companies, it could be people you've worked with. It could be current clients or vendors that you give business to. And the last would really be prospects. So I know LinkedIn is used for lead generation, but we're just going to tell you, if you want to build a quality network and you're just getting started, the best way is to start with people that you've already got some connection with. Now, if you've talked to somebody and they're a working prospect and they know who you are, then of course you should feel free to reach out to them. So what happens is when you go into LinkedIn, there's an icon on the top that shows you your network. You can click on that and it'll list all of the people. And then it'll also start to suggest for you other people you might know. So that's a great way. First connection means you're already connected. Second means it's someone who's connected with someone that you're connected to. And third is really kind of an outer tier, but it's someone who's connected to someone who's connected that you know. And then there is a great function in LinkedIn. And, you know, if you're really needing to build your network, I would say just pace yourself. It's really hard to do this for hours and hours at any one time. Maybe you dedicate an hour a couple times a week for a month and just kind of see where you're at. But that search bar is really pretty nifty. So you can search on Kansas City. You can search on whatever region you want. You can search on companies. So it could be all the companies that you've worked for before. It could be industries. It could be schools. They'll give you all of the different filters, but it's a nice, easy way for you to start thinking about who you can connect with. I'll give you a really quick example. My undergrad is having they're supposed to be 30th reunion live next week. And instead it's virtual. And it's amazing how LinkedIn has just been bringing all of these names from, yes, that many years ago, because LinkedIn didn't exist back then, to my attention that are saying, hey, it's somebody that you might know. And I realized, well, they graduated the same year I did. And oh my gosh, same major and, you know, same college, et cetera. So I've had a lot of new connections recently just because of that. Okay, so personalized note. So some of you, you're probably viewing this session on your computer, but if you have your phone handy, it's a great way for you to check what we're saying. It's good to know that when you send a connection, LinkedIn does it two different ways. So if you're from your computer, and by the way, this is the blue astrological background that we don't want you to have. And also my friend Troy here, he's got a very handsome picture right now. But back when I sent him this connection, this is what his profile looked like. He had a lot of connections, but he still had a lot of work to do to make it visually appealing. So from your computer, you hit connect. the computer will prompt you to say, hey, you know, people are more likely to accept your invitation if you include a note. Would you like to add a note? And then it gives you the button to hit send now. When you do it through your phone, it's a little bit different. So this is my friend Brian. I hit connect, it went right away. So what you actually need to do is click on this more button. So it's 2 steps from your phone. More will get you to this next screen, and you want to click on personalized invite, and you can send a note something like this. Hey, Brian, I'm looking forward to meeting next week. So we had talked on the phone, but we hadn't met in person yet. And I said, my kind of closing line is let's get linked. And so those of you who've gotten an invite from me, you know, that's what I say. I will gift to you that line. We always recommend trying to make it a little bit more personal and adding some kind of a signature close, like let's get linked or whatever is, you know, suits your personality, is just a nice way to add a little energy and a little personality into the invitation that you're doing with them. So again, the key things here, whether you're doing it for your computer or your phone, there's 2 different ways to go into it. But regardless, we really want you to send a note when you start to have new connections. Okay, so we're going to play a little game here. I would like to know, Christina, hit one more, please. Thank you. Of these 3, which connection requests do you think I accepted? And then I'm going to have Christina build once more. These are 2 that Christina got, and I'd like to know which one or both you think Christina accepted. Okay, so I'm going to give you the answers and I'm going to explain why. So the first 2 that we showed from Justin and Krishner, I didn't accept. So Justin, we apparently don't have any people in common. He didn't even send me a note. And based on his description of what he does, I really didn't need him to help me accomplish my goals. So he wasn't of value to my network. And I felt like he was just going to try to sell me things. So I wasn't interested. Krishner, she's got a great professional photo, but what she does professionally and where she lives in Perth, Australia, wow, Perth is kind of a fun place to go visit. It didn't suit my needs professionally. So I didn't accept that one either. And those of you who said Paul Taylor, you are absolutely right. So Paul, I don't know Paul, but look at this wonderful note that he wrote to me. He shared a little bit about who he was. He mentioned my company name. He was great. So yeah, I accepted Paul. Okay, Christina, do you want to talk about Brian and Thad?
Yes, so I get a lot of requests that are like Brian's. Brian doesn't have a picture. I know what he does. We have a lot of connections, 51 connections, but there's no note. I didn't know anything about Raymond Management Company. And so the problem with Brian's is that he was asking me to do the work. He was asking me sort of by not giving me a note to go look up what he did, what his company was, who our connections were. Most people on the other end of your connections, they don't have the time to do the work. Don't make them do the work for them. And so I think I said, no, thank you. Or I kind of didn't accept, nor did I deny. I just let him hang out there for a while I tried to figure out, well, do I know you or did I meet you? And maybe you forgot the note. Whereas Thad said he's a financial advisor and musical theater enthusiast. I have a strong background in music. He said, I hope you wouldn't find it too incredibly odd to work with a broker who would spontaneously break out in song. I appreciated that he told me what he did, that he personalized it. I felt like for me a little bit. And while I didn't need him as a financial advisor, we ended up having a really nice conversation back and forth, and I did accept him. Plus, we had a nice handful of mutual connections, and I thought it would be a mutually advantageous and beneficial relationship. So both Paul and Thad get A+, gold stars from Aviva and Christina's LinkedIn 201 training.
Okay, so we teased you a little bit up front and we mentioned that LinkedIn launched stories. And Christina, is it like 3 weeks old or 3.5 weeks old? It's very young. And so the question is, what are LinkedIn stories? And I'm going to let Christina explain.
So if you've used Instagram or Instagram stories or Facebook stories, it's a very similar premise. They're really an answer to the trend or the new norm of stories. And they're just individuals or businesses can share images or short videos, tag people and add stickers, add some different features, and basically, like Facebook and Instagram counterparts, they disappear in 24 hours. And where they live is, instead of this huge scroll on the feed, if you'll see this picture on the left, they live up at the top of your mobile device where you can see them. They live up at the top of LinkedIn in general. And so sometimes you might pique someone's curiosity by being right at the top. And that circle around people's names or company names shows that they have an active story. And so it's really good for content that's you want to be quickly distributed, that it's not evergreen. Maybe you have a new news flash or an event or a quote or something you want to share, something that it's okay to be gone in an instant. And so that's really how you use them: updates, events, thought leadership, and they're much more casual. LinkedIn, as Aviva and I have both said, it's the most professional site. It's the most professional channel. It's the way you're going to interact with your professional contacts. But the stories can feel a little more authentic, a little more casual, a little more like you're creating them as you go. That's okay.
Okay, we are going to pause for a moment here. I've been answering some questions through the chat and Q&A. If anyone's got any current questions, feel free to throw them into either one of those places. We're going to have one more spot towards the end where we answer questions. So just feel free, as you're listening to the content, to just keep throwing your questions in there. I think we're just going to move ahead in the interest of time.
We most likely have a lot of business leaders on this call. Maybe you're the leader of a board member, you lead an organization, you're a C-suite, a founder. A great way to use LinkedIn, and why you need it, frankly, is because your employees want to hear from you. 65% of employees say it's important for CEOs to actively communicate about their companies online. And 60% of employees, they're checking out executive social media accounts before they accept. And employees want to work for CEOs with a social media presence of 2 to 1, but half of CEOs, they don't even have one social media account. So we want you to be the lead that your employees want to hear from. And also I'll add that during COVID, 1/3 of employees say that if their C-suite or their business leaders are not posting on social media, they think something is wrong. They are worried for the safety of their job. So this is a great way that you can be a little more transparent, a little more reassuring, and really use LinkedIn as a great place to do this, to build leadership and some good employee experience. And building thought leadership, right? Over half of B2B decision makers use thought leadership as an important way to kind of vet the businesses that they're considering. And so when we think of thought leaders, they're the voice of authority in their fields. A lot of recognizable faces on here, right? Bill Gates was one of the first on the scene to be a thought leader in LinkedIn. He shared a ton on this platform. A lot of it was actually about his foundation, but he really sort of paved the path. And then we have Chantel, who is now she is actually this amazing marketing leader on LinkedIn. She's been named one of the creative leaders here and content creators. And in 1 year, she garnered something like 30,000 LinkedIn connections. She now has 80,000 connections across social media, and she posts really great content. Dr. Michelle Robbins, she's a favorite of Aviva and I, both personally and professionally, so excited to give her a little shout out. She is a business founder here in Kansas City of Your Wellness Connection, and also of an organization, Small Changes, Big Shifts, that emphasizes whole body and whole person, rather, wellness. She currently today went live with Mayor Quentin Lucas. here in Kansas City, our mayor. And she's also doing this amazing thing all of us could use right now, which is 31 days of kindness. It's a kindness campaign that is really sweeping Kansas City and sweeping the nation. She posts excellent content across social media, always active on every channel as herself with her organizations. And so if you want to see someone who's in real life, who might be close to you or might lead an organization like yours, she's active in Women Who Means Business and other different organizations here. Connect with Dr. Michelle Robin. Tell her that Aviva and Christina sent you. She'll be happy to. She's very generous with her connections and with her network. The reason, and you could be the thought leader too, right? We want you to develop your thought leadership because perhaps you sell a product, or perhaps you're an author or speaker, or maybe you're a consultant. We have lots of, I've seen like attorneys, doctors, real estate agents who are joining us. People want to know that you know your stuff, that you know what you're talking about. And LinkedIn is really a way that you can share that information with them. And you need to make time for this because it offers a human face and connection for your company, your organization, your board, your nonprofit. You can use it to share company news or publish LinkedIn articles or insights. And people really respond when a real person share something, not just a company or a business page. And we'll talk more about that. Also, executives and the leaders, so real people, they always outperform companies. So like your business page sharing something on engagement by over 320% per post, meaning it's wonderful and important for your business to share an update. But if your CEO or if your business leader or if your CMO shares that, the engagement is going to be through the roof on that because it's a real person, a face and a name sharing that. So think about what that means for your content. Now, another way to build your network as well as distribute thought leadership, connect with people around you in your industry or in related industries are LinkedIn groups. There are 2 million LinkedIn groups, and more than half the people using LinkedIn, they subscribe to at least one LinkedIn group. The average LinkedIn user is joining about 7, but people who engage in these group discussions, they get 4 times the profile view. And you can think of these groups as little sort of gated communities within LinkedIn. You have to ask to be part of a group. Sometimes they have rules such as this group is for C-suite only, or this group is for women in tech only, or sometimes it's just related or an interest. There are tons of groups, I guarantee you, wherever you live or your industry. And so if you're thinking about joining some groups, and I would advise it, it's a great way to make relationships and develop relationships, as well as seeing content that's more specific, maybe interested. So it's a way to make this huge LinkedIn platform maybe a little smaller and a little more homey and advantageous for you.
Okay, so this is a question we get every single time we teach this class. So we wanted to share the answer with you today. What is the difference between a personal profile and a business page? And if I have a small business, do I need both?
All right, so a personal profile is excellent on LinkedIn. You must start with a personal profile to build a business page, and you need to build your brand on your personal page before you decide if you need a business page. Personal profiles always do, with some rare exceptions, always do better on LinkedIn for the reason we just talked about in the 2 slides previous. It's a real person connecting with another real person. People are interested in when you have updates or information. They want to engage with a person. Now, a business page is excellent if you plan on growing. If you need the social proof of a business page, of connecting a lot of employees together in one space. If you're part of a large, massive organization, you need a business page. You shouldn't try to manage that all on your own. And you need to review what are your platform priorities. If you just want to connect and you want to share some updates occasionally, and your audience maybe really isn't even on LinkedIn, you can think about it. If you're a B2B service or you're a business that's really growing, for sure you need a business page. A business page is amazing because it helps people search for your service or what you offer. It's amazing for SEO, which is search engine optimization. LinkedIn business pages rank very well for SEO, and it's great because it can lead to your website. It can give a lot of information. So most likely you need both. You need your personal profile and you need a business page. The rare times that you don't would be, for example, if you're an author, perhaps, or maybe a speaker, a public speaker, and you yourself and only you as part of your brand. And really, it's just better to go from your personal profile.
Good explanation, Christina. We had a question submitted through the chat, and it is, how do I ask for customer reviews on my business page?
Great. So if you have linked up with that person, you can obviously send them a message letting them know you want that review. Could they submit a review? There's a little button for that. If they're not, what I would suggest is you probably need to have some other marketing campaign, such as an email marketing campaign that drives them to LinkedIn. Let them know how to do it. Let them know why you want it. Oftentimes people will ask a review in exchange for something. You have to be very careful about what you do, but perhaps you're thanking them and asking them, or it would be great, or we're offering this, would you mind giving us a review? So there are a lot of different ways to go about it. And then obviously it's very different on your personal page, your personal profile. You're sending them a message saying, could you recommend me as the person? So two separate things.
Okay, good. Thanks, Christina. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit more about your company page, okay? So we gave you the kind of big level way to think about the difference. We want to impress upon you why it's important for your company. So as we stated, it is an ideal place to showcase your company, build buzz, and brand awareness. Depending on your industry, it's also a great way to position your company as a thought leader. And depending again on how many people you have and the subject matter expertise of your employees, it's a great way to highlight team expertise. It also nurtures existing relationships. So if you've got a lot of clients or customers, Christina mentioned frequency of posting is really important. It'll improve your company visibility. And if you're growing, yay, you're probably looking to hire some new people. It's a great recruiting tool because it's still a recruiting tool going back to its origins. And then as we noted, it's a great place to then drive people that are looking at your company page to your company website. So I wanted to share a quick example with you about McCown Gordon. And we're going to talk a little bit more about them in a few minutes. But when I first started working with them in 2015, they only had a couple hundred followers on their LinkedIn page. And we did a whole effort across their entire company. And I'll share the details of that with you a little bit later. But you can see now they're basically at 8,000 followers. So like I said about your own personal connections, it's not going to happen overnight, but it is certainly something once you set what your goal is, you can achieve it over time. Okay, so we'd love to know how many of you have a LinkedIn page for your company. And if you don't, it's okay. This slide is in your handouts. And I honestly, all I did is I went to LinkedIn and I Google searched creating a business page on LinkedIn. And these were a few of the images that I thought would be the most helpful for you. They have a very simple way of how to go about creating your business page. It's a template. Fill the whole template out. Those fields are in there for a reason. Those are going to help your SEO and it'll help people find you. And then they've also got playbooks, which I thought was so slick, of different things to think about depending on the stage of your business. So if you are a small business or a startup, they've got different recommendations. If you are a larger business, they've got different recommendations. So it's good, even if you've got your business page up and running, maybe it's not super active, or maybe you feel like you're not fully optimizing it, go back in and look at these links. And I guarantee you, they're going to give you some ideas of things that you can do to kind of optimize your effectiveness. Oh, I'm sorry. Is this still me? Yes, this is me. I apologize. Sorry, Christina. Okay, so how do you get followers on your business page? Because if you haven't figured out what the theme is today, it's how you get connections and how you build your network. So you've got your business page ready. The very first place to start is everyone at your company. Now, you might not have a huge company. It might be a company of 1 or a company of under 10, or maybe it is a couple hundred like McCown Gordon was. Definitely send an email out to whoever it applies to and say, hey, we've got our LinkedIn business page up and running. Please go in and follow it. Then the super slick thing that you can do, because you've already been working on your personal profile, is you can make a post on your personal profile that says something like, we're really excited about our new company page. Follow us with this link. Unlike Facebook, which will tee up people for you, LinkedIn doesn't make it that easy. They have added a feature where I think it's once a month, they allow you to invite up to 100 people from your personal network, but it's really slow because again, you're limited on how quickly you can send those out, and it's going to be staggered over time. So this is another great way to do it. And then the best way to get followership is by posting. Okay, so let's say you put a post out. What are you going to do? This is an example of something McCown Gordon had put out. It was quite some time ago. The first thing you can do is you send a company email that says, hey, everyone, we just posted something on LinkedIn. Please go in and like it. Ideally, they work for the company, so they're also going to go in and comment like, yes, we've got this great new product. We're so excited about it, or so honored to be able to work on the launch of XYZ. And then they'll share it to their own network, which will amplify the reach. I used to work at a B2B international consulting firm. This was now 7 to 12 years ago. And our CEO would send all of us worldwide an email every time there was a post. And he would go in and check to see who had gone in and liked, commented, and shared, because it was an expectation. I mean, at the end of the day, that company was providing paychecks. So it was an expectation for employees to be part of the engagement audience, to generate reach and just general awareness of the company. So let me share with you this really fun, cool example. And this is something that we did with McCown Gordon. I'm using them as an example because I'm so proud of not only the success they've achieved in Kansas City, but just to really show you the impact. They were already a company of 200 plus, and they are still in trajectory growth. And they started to use LinkedIn very strategically 5 years ago, and it's been wonderful for them. So I call this slide the multiplier effect. So when we went in to go work with them, we kind of broke their organization down into 4 levels. So you've got your executive teams, your C-suite group, your vice presidents, directors, and all staff, okay? And again, here are the goals depending upon what level you are in an organization. So if you're on the executive team, my challenge to them was I wanted them to have 1,000 plus connections. If you were at the vice president or director level, it was 500 connections. And if you were more junior in the organization, my goal to all of them was simply to have 300 or more connections. And frankly, that's really realistic because you just haven't been in the professional world as long. It's going to be really hard for you to have 500 or 1,000 or more. So follow my math over here on the left-hand side. It's in the orange text. So for the executive team, even though my goal for them was 1,000 or more, I said very realistically, they're going to have a lot of overlap in who they know and who's in their network. So let's just say they have 500 unique connections in each of those networks. For the vice presidents, I was even more kind. And I said, let's just say 250 unique connections between the 4 vice presidents. And then the same for the directors, okay? So about half of who I'm saying is unique, and the other half, let's say we understand you guys work in the same company, you're in the same industry, you're gonna have a lot of overlap. Now for the staff, Again, our goal was just 300 or more. At the time, they had about 220 employees. And I said, you know what, let's just say you've got 100 unique people because you guys have gone to different schools. Perhaps you've lived in different parts of the country, etc. Well, look at the math on this. If you add up all of the numbers on the right-hand side, you get to 26,000 unique impressions, or 26,000 people that you can potentially reach because you started at a company page and you've shared that post to your personal profile. That is the beauty of the multiplier effect in action when you have a business page and you've got, a bunch of employees.
This is my favorite slide because it really shows the power of social media and the power of LinkedIn and how a business page functions with a personal profile page. And if you're a leader and wondering how you can do this for your organization, you must give everyone education. So like you're getting for yourself today, education on how to use LinkedIn. They must know how to use LinkedIn, how to go about doing this. And this can't be the expectation that they're just going to know to do this. So as leaders or marketers, it's on you to give them that education. And you also need to talk about how else you can distribute that content, either from a personal profile or from a business profile. And really just look at the content that gets the most engagements. Look at images. They receive 98 more comments than LinkedIn posts without it. Posts with links have 200% higher engagement. Videos are getting 5 times the engagement. Long form content is popular on LinkedIn. Really nowhere else. LinkedIn, they love it. And so this is the kind of content that you need to be putting out if you really want to see a lot of eyes from it. And as Aviva said, there is all of that multiplication efforts when you share from a business page and then you share from leadership. You can schedule a Google alert. So if someone publishes or talks about your company somewhere on the web, you'll hear about it. You can repurpose, reshare all your articles, interviews, news. The more you tag individuals in your posts, the more eyes will be seen on it. And so those are all ways and tips that you can distribute your content and have as many eyes on the content, which is ultimately what's going to get you engagement and connections. We mentioned earlier LinkedIn articles, and LinkedIn articles are a great way and a great kind of content that you can distribute. They're amazing because they're indexed on Google like a blog post or something on your website. They establish you as a thought leader. They build authority. They help get to your second and third level connections because they see other people and their connections commenting on your articles, and they're really easy to do. So when you go to LinkedIn, it gives you this prompt, like you see by my, you can easy you're going to write about. You copy and paste the article in there. You have a headline, read how to use LinkedIn for business. You upload an image. You can use a stock photo or one that you've created or an original photo or graphic. And then you put in the text, you press publish. If only publishing was that easy, we would all be John Grisham. Amazing, right? But it is so incredibly easy. And you can do that once a week. You can do it once a month. Have it as part of your strategy. And the great thing is, because Google is recrawling LinkedIn articles, once something is on your website as a blog, wait 30 days and then republish it as a LinkedIn article, or vice versa. It gets you more indexing opportunities and just more opportunities for people to see that content. People always ask the best times to post. For most industries, especially B2B, B2C, kind of all across the board, it's really what you can think of as lunchtime. There's this new secondary time in the evening. You'll see there's this kind of offshoot of media companies getting on at 8 a.m. That's the best time for them to post, very industry specific. And if you're wondering the best time that you should post, Google it. There are all sorts of platforms and research out there, LinkedIn tells you the best time to post based on industry, as well as, start to examine when you're getting the best engagement. But I would say across the board, 99 times out of 100, just think around lunchtime. And best frequency, once a day. We don't want to be on LinkedIn posting 10 times a day. That's Twitter, which we'll talk about next week. We want to post really once a day. That's sufficient, and it's a great sufficiency. Hashtags. So we talked a little bit about hashtags, how they're search engines on social media, but I want to give you a few little tips and tricks and rules around them. Because they help categorize or group together topics, you can provide your business with a way that you can target what people are interested in. So it might be hashtag around products or interests. There's, you might guess that in March and April, one of the top hashtags on any social media site, hashtag coronavirus and hashtag COVID-19. Hashtags that are trending really speak to what people are talking about and posting about on social media. So when you're thinking about using a hashtag, you need to be specific and they should be relevant. You do not want to make them too long. People don't like these hashtags that take up a whole line. And you don't want to be so clever that you're the only one who's thinking of that hashtag. You want to be a little basic, specific to your industry or business, but not too overtly clever. And then be really specific. For Facebook, we always tell people 2 to 3 hashtags, but for LinkedIn, you can use a little more, 3 to 5. There might be instances you use more, but as a general rule, 3 to 5 hashtags are great, and use them on every single one of your posts. It's what helps you to be trending. Aviva told you about a colleague or a client rather, who had a lot of success on LinkedIn. We've seen our clients who post time and time again, amazing LinkedIn articles, amazing posts that are really talking in LinkedIn groups that are using hashtags. We've seen them start to trend on LinkedIn for things like hashtag leadership, hashtag C-suite. And so once you start attaching those hashtags, it will not only help people who look at your posts know what you're talking about, but it gives you the opportunity to be linked up literally with all of the other hashtags about that kind of topic. Now, we thought this was fun. The top 3 hashtags for LinkedIn in 2020, networking, work from home, and home office. Isn't that a sign of the times? I think last year they were things like innovation and marketing. So really a sign of where we are right now.
Okay, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity. I think this is the last Q&A pause that we're going to have. I'm going to throw a question out there to give you a chance to throw your questions out there. This is a question we get asked a lot, and it's about LinkedIn Premium. And the question is it worth it? And I'm going to let Christina answer the question.
Well, I would say it really, really depends what industry you're in and why you're using LinkedIn. If you are using LinkedIn for really aggressive lead generation, sales, recruitment, that kind of thing, yes, then it is worth it. If you are just using it to build your network, odds are, honestly, you really don't need it. You do get a lot of really cool features with it, but at the end of the day, they don't really pay for themselves when you could have all of these other organic efforts that will really suit you and put you in an even better place. If you are using it, good for you, and that's your experience. But we do see a lot of people time and time again that said, I used it, and as a business leader or a business owner, it really just wasn't worth it for me, unless you are in one of those industries like sales, in which you are just using it for lead generation.
So we have a question, Christina, and I don't know if you'll know the answer to it. It is, does Sales Navigator include LinkedIn Premium?
Sales Navigator is a piece of one of LinkedIn's premiums, if that makes sense. So it's in LinkedIn Premium is either embedded in Sales Navigator or vice versa. There are sort of 4 tiers of LinkedIn Premium. So it just depends which tier you've chosen and which price point.
Okay, I should never have doubted you, Christina. You know everything about LinkedIn. Okay, we are going to transition now into the last few slides, and these are going to be all the do's and don'ts and reminders, and then a few tools, because we really hope that this class was helpful for you. We're still on with you for another 7 minutes or so, so if you've got more questions, throw them in to either the chat or the Q&A, and most of the next group of slides are also in your handouts.
So the most important thing that Aviva and I will always tell you is create this foundation, optimize your profiles, and then create a social media strategy. Your social media strategy should link up with your business goals. Without a strategy, you have no idea how to measure success or on the path in which you're supposed to drive the boat. You'll just be wafting around in the ocean. You need to find a balance of selling and telling your story. And of course, on all social media, but especially LinkedIn, please remain professional, kind, respectful. Track your results. Identify the key performance indicators that are important to you and your strategy. Is it engagement? Is it lead generation? Is it driving traffic to your website? The end all be all is not sales. It's hard to remember that as a part of any organization, but there are many touch points and stops along the way. And those KPIs might be, again, connections, engagement, and then reciprocity. This is a huge one. I think this is Aviva's biggest pet peeve.
Yes.
Please engage with others, like their pages, like their posts, comment on their posts. Nobody wants to be at a party with someone who just wants to talk about themselves and not ask questions. The same goes for social media. Do not be that person that is going nonstop. Ask people about what they do, share their successes, celebrate them, comment. And especially if we have business owners here in the chat, connect with each other and support one another, whether you're in a similar industry or different. That really goes a long way, and it will come back around. And that not only that good karma, but the way the algorithm works will come back around and reward you. And let's talk about a little bit of tools. Not all business owners have time to take care of their own social media. Perhaps you're not into graphics. We've suggested these 3 tools are a great way. You can make simple graphics. You can publish on LinkedIn, or you can use any of these scheduling tools to sort of act as a social media or marketing person for your organization, or your social media or marketing person may use these. You can always hire or engage a social media company or social media freelancer or strategist. Along the way, there's always someone who can come be a support to your organization. Aviva and I both work with many organizations in all sorts of different ways and all sorts of different capabilities, in which we're full-time support all the way to a couple hours of consulting a month support. So no matter what your efforts are, you have those. If you need a more robust social media tool, Meet Edgar and Sprout Social are more sophisticated. They use things like social listening, content curation, whereas Hootsuite, Social Pilot, and Buffer, they're more beginner tools. Check them out. They all have great tutorials. And the do's and don'ts, this is in your handout. It's just a really great table of, hey, I had this idea. I think I'm going to put it on social media, maybe LinkedIn, maybe somewhere else. Should I put it on social media? If you are on any kind of social media, you know the answer is not everything in your head should go on social media. Sure, or if you're new to the game, or if maybe you even want to give a marketing point person on your team a little bit of a do's and don'ts, this is a great checklist that you can look over.
Okay, so this is in your handouts as well. I know we've shared a lot of information with you, and we're really proud of all of you all for hanging in there with us. We did get a few comments about, hey, I've got a page, or hey, I've got like 2,000 connections, but I've never really used them. These are just some ideas for how you can get started, okay? We know it is going to require a little bit of commitment, but we wanted to break it into some digestible parts for you. So our first recommendation is be consistent. It'll just make it easier for you. So choose the day of the week that you want to post and select a focus for the day. The best way to do this is just put it on a calendar. And we've given you some really simple handouts of calendar pages, so it's not getting blended in with all your other things that you keep on your calendar. And then plan, right? We've talked about how it's really important that your social media strategy aligns with your business goals. That way they're supporting one another. We suggest sitting down once a month and planning it out 30 days at a time. Believe me, it'll free your mind up. You'll be really, really happy. But know that it's also really important, especially on social media, to be a little bit flexible, because you might have some trending topics that you want to discuss. So if you've got something slated, know that you can always move stuff around. Either set aside time at the end of each month, or like Christina said, hire someone. Our recommendation, if you're doing it for yourself, plan on at least 6 hours a month minimum, maybe a week, because sometimes it does take a little bit time if you're creating new content. I'm going to let you read through some of the other things. And most importantly, know there's always something to post. I know in the beginning, if you haven't been posting regularly, it can seem a little bit overwhelming. Like, wow, I need to post, once a day or once a week. And there's all these different things I need to remember. I've got to remember groups, and I have to remember hashtags and blah, blah, blah. Well, no. And here's some examples in the next build of the kinds of things that you can post. So this month we are wrapping up. We're just a couple days left for National Women's Small Business Month. So that's always something you can talk about. If you happen to be a female business owner, you can talk about product sneak peeks, sales and promotions, contests. You can talk about employees, customer appreciation, any awards that your organization might have won, or any features that you've gotten in local businesses. You could talk about major holidays, or even write and share your own articles, or share other people's articles. We do that all the time. There's so much great content, and Christina shared with you some software tools that will help curate content for you, where you can share a great article from a publication in your industry, or it could be something in Fast Company or in Inc. or in Forbes. People do that all the time, and you can count it as your post if you're posting it from your page. The next few slides, and it looks like we're having a little bit of trouble, so I apologize with our actual presentation, but know that you've got these next few slides in your handout, so you can refer to them. Is just about, getting started. So you've only got a few days left in October. Think about what you want to get accomplished through the end of the year, and use the 2 sheets that we've got for November and December to just kind of plan it out a little bit. And then also know that our next class is next week. It's the last class of our series, and we're going to talk about both Instagram and Twitter. It's going to be really current because the election will just have occurred the day before. So we know we're going to be adding a lot of new content to that Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. There are a couple of questions, Christina, that I wanted to have a chance to answer. Oh, it looks like it's 2:31. Let's see. Okay, one is, we're expanding out building. Should I ask the design group if it's okay to advertise them on our page while the project is going on?
Very cool. Always great. And people always appreciate a shout out for work well done. Definitely always ask. People appreciate it.
Yeah, they definitely appreciate it. I mean, we did that with Michelle Robin. Would you mind if we featured you and made sure we used a picture she was okay with? And she said, absolutely. And thank you. I'm grateful. And then, in case you didn't hear us mention it before, please follow us and connect with us. We would love to be a part of your network. You can become a part of our network. Christina and I both have personal and business pages on Facebook and LinkedIn. Christina's got both on Instagram and Twitter as well. And sign up for our next class. We'd love to have you join us. And for those of you that are still on, please let us know what you liked best about the class, and we'll make sure and talk more about that next time.
Thank you.
Great. Christina and Aviva, thank you so much. This was really great content, and thank you for all that joined us. Hopefully we'll see you next week for Instagram and Twitter 201 on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Here's the link to register for that session. And as I mentioned, we will be posting this recording on our YouTube channel. So thanks so much and have a great afternoon.